Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, brought to you by Bet365. We are coming to you from the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studio. Visit shoptoyota.ca or visit your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. My name is Jacob Jelly. I'm joined by Harman Dial. It was a good weekend. It was a good weekend in the world of sports. It was a good weekend for some Canucks prospects, and that's going to be the main focus of today's show. Our technical producer is Jacob Lazar. It's not a Family Feud day, but it's coming up this week. Big Hog Hockey in the chat was early saying Family Feud. Not today, but this Thursday, Family Feud. Speaking of Jacob, right off the top, Jacob, do we have enough responses for Family Feud this week, or do we need more as we get set to kick off a new season of Family Feud on Thursday from Penticton?
I think we need 15 more when I checked this morning. So okay. I'm expecting
by the time
people
listen to this. Yeah. By the time you listen to this, you've probably already missed out, but don't worry, you can join us all season long as we get set to play Family Feud Fast Money every week of the season, starting this week. Okay, couple things from this prospect tournament. I'll say the quiet part out loud. Everybody's worried about Tom Willander harm. Everybody's worried about Tom Willander, and everybody's masking it behind, oh, it's fine, it's just a prospect show. No, everybody's worried, terrified of Tom Willander being a bust. I'm here to say that's not going to be the case. Well, I'm not going to say that explicitly, but what I am going to say is, yes, I didn't like his game, especially on the Saturday. I thought he really struggled, and I'm curious to get Dave's thoughts on this as well. So I'm going to throw it at him as well, because I'm trying to understand Tom Willander better. And basically my read through some limited viewings, but my read on Tom Willander is that he's a good skater, but he doesn't yet think the game quickly, if that makes sense. There's a reason Derek Forbert's able to stick in the NHL. Right? You've seen Derek Forbort skate in a straight line. It ain't pretty. He's not fast, but he thinks fast, right? And he's quick on his puck retrievals, for example. You think of maybe Zadorov's a bad example, but you think of that third pair. So Ian Cole, let's use Ian Cole as the example. I don't think Zadorov's a bad example, but Zadorov has wheels, whatever. My point being, Ian Cole was really good at those puck retrievals, right? And that matters. That matters a lot, and that's a part of his game that I think Willander still needs to get. Doesn't yet have it, but it comes quickly. A guy I want to bring everybody's attention to is Elias Pettersson. Played great, had a great tournament, but I will remind everybody at this time last year, I was on this very podcast, and I wasn't saying that I wasn't alone in saying this. I watched Elias Pettersson at camp. You watched Elias Pettersson at training camp, and we both said, "Ooh, that dude ain't ready. It's going to take him some time to get to the NHL." Then I went and saw him in November, December, out in Abbotsford playing first pair minutes, and I said, this guy's ready for the NHL. There's little things that you pick up playing the pro game that once you have them and you have the tools that a guy like Pettersson, that a guy like Willander has, when you have those tools and you start to put the rest together, that's when you start to be, okay, this guy needs to be playing NHL games. Pettersson's there right now. Elias Pettersson's there. Tom Willander could be there soon. I don't think he's there yet, but basically what I'm trying to explain is that I don't think he's there yet, but I don't think this is you got to wait 1 or 2 years. You might, but it could also be as fast as we saw it for Elias Pettersson, because I thought Pettersson was about at this level last year too.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think even watching Willander in the NCAA, I was curious about how quickly you mentioned the IQ aspect and the reads and the decision-making. That's not just with the puck, that's without the puck as well. I think there were spots and moments, especially on Saturday, where he was chasing the play in the defensive zone a little bit. And that's why I asked Dave last week when we had him on that Willander at the college level has been able to defend well because of his athletic tools, because of that skating, and because he's just able to straight up out muscle guys. And especially as he's trying to work his way up to the pros in the NHL, I wondered whether it would take him time to learn how to effectively translate that defensive style, because it isn't so much IQ based, it's athleticism based. And I did expect that there would be some learning moments for him to become accustomed to playing within a defensive system at the pro level, and learning not just, there's a difference between being fast and actually playing quickly. It's not the same as just your foot speed, right? An extreme example of this, and it's a forward, but is Matthew Tkachuk. Matthew Tkachuk, dude can't skate, but he plays so quickly because of his IQ and his brain, right? And so that's what Willander needs to work on. And let's remember, he's 20 years old. It would have frankly surprised me if he was NHL ready right out of the gate this fall.
Yeah, and we're not saying he's not. Like, he's going to have every opportunity to make this team. All indications are that the Canucks would love for him to make this team. But I saw him out at UBC, didn't really stand out. And then I saw him at this prospects showcase. Again, didn't really stand out. We'll see what happens at training camp. I think that's going to be a big focus of training camp is how does Tom Willander stack up? But again, one of my takeaways, go back and look at it. Day 1 or 2 of training camp was Elias Pettersson is not ready for the NHL. And admittedly, I thought it would take him a lot longer, but then I went down to Abbotsford in November and I was the first to declare it. I came on this show and I declared that dude's NHL ready. He gets the NHL call up and he looked really good, obviously, down the stretch. So there's lots to get to. Let's bring in Dave Hall to talk about the rest. Dave Hall is a presentation of our friends at Greta. By now, you know that Greta is a great spot to watch the big game. Did you know it's an even better spot for your upcoming party or event? If you need a venue for a team building or summer social event, check out Greta. They've got the street food menu, they've got the arcade, and of course, they've got the bar. It's always a fun time with plenty of options. Make Greta your spot for your next event. Make sure you join us this season for our watch parties, folks. Details on that coming soon. I think the first one's going to be pretty early into October, into the regular season there. So we'll get you details on that soon. But regardless, visit Greta, even if we're not there. Greta Bar, YVR, 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. All right. Let the Dave begin. Dave Hall joins us now. Sorry about that, Dave. That was no good. But Tom Willander, also no good. Tom Willander, how was he in your eyes at the tournament? And I know you were listening. Do you agree with what I just said about him and his progression?
Yeah, and you know what? I actually, thanks for going right into it because I wanted to hop in there as well. I felt like on the Saturday, there's nothing to really like. He was bad. Like there's no sugarcoating it. He was not good. But especially since we put him at such a high level, he's one of the top, if not the top prospect in this organization. We had high hopes. You see some other defensemen from around the league. They're outright dominating their prospect showcase, and so that's an area that we kind of hope to see from Tom Willander. And Saturday, it was not a good performance. He was, there were just moments where he just felt in no man's land in the defensive zone. He got burned quite easily, albeit it was Berkeley Catton, who was easily Seattle's top player. But it almost seemed, and then Sunday's game, he was better. He definitely played a little bit more of a simpler game. It wasn't, he wasn't so sporadic in all 3 zones, but you still saw moments of it. And, you mentioned the puck retrievals, and I do agree. The one glaring thing for hope for me is that that was something that we would hope that he would work on last year, and I actually found that he did slowly but surely get better at that at the NCAA level last year. So it's one thing, first game of the season, who knows how he's feeling, right? So maybe that's just something that he needs to kind of ease his way into. But yesterday in the Sunday's game, Harm mentioned that you can skate fast but not necessarily play fast, and he had a couple rushes yesterday where he skated the puck from behind his own zone, and I would love to go back on the stream and view these again, but I had a pretty good angle of him. He rushes up the ice very nicely. He gains the zone, and as soon as he gains the zone, it's almost as if he doesn't know what to do with it. So his feet are moving faster than his hands, and he just gave up the puck. And next thing you know, Seattle turns it off for an odd man rush transition. And it's things like that where his feet just seem to be moving faster than his hands right now, and so he needs to slow things down, I think. And, he's so eager to show off that skating where I just think he needs to slow down the paces. We talked about it last week where I think he just needs to really need to get into those Manny Malhotra systems. And yes, I'm saying Manny Malhotra because I do feel that he does need the Abbotsford time where he's just, playing a much more simpler game than he needed to this weekend.
Was DPD the best Canuck this weekend? And in your mind, I think we all know he's going to make the team. He's going to be a full-time NHL defenseman this season. What are your expectations for how impactful he can be at the big league level this year?
Yeah, he was definitely the best skater. I really liked the goaltending this weekend, so I'm going to put that as my highlight. But by far, the best skater, Berkeley Catton probably takes it in terms of like overall player. But I think Elias Pettersson was definitely the best player on the Canucks by far. He's exactly what I was hoping to see from Tom Willander, where he was just clearly above and beyond. He was too good for the tournament, which is what you want to see from one of your top prospects. Just super physical. I love that in yesterday's game, he throws a massive hit. he actually he went off wincing, and he was in visible pain for quite a few minutes, but still stayed in the game. He got a few pats from the head coaches, and he's still just doing his thing out there. And he's just such a brute. He's just so much fun to watch. And so he was easily the best player for Canucks. In terms of this year, the issue is that he's stuck behind Marcus Pettersson and Quinn Hughes, right? And so even if he slides to the right side, he can only go so far. So I think he's really just going to top out as that third pairing guy, get onto the penalty kill, which is nice. But at this point, I think that's all you can really ask. You know, even just getting NHL games right now at 21 is just going to be a fantastic learning experience for him. So I just, I think he probably could go a little higher. He's just unfortunately stuck behind for the first time in a while, a pretty decent depth chart. So
everyone wants to know about Willander. Everyone wants to know about Leeroy Mackey. The latter there, Leeroy Mackey.
Yeah.
How did he perform this weekend in your eyes? And was it up to expectations for you? Where did you see Leeroy Mackey?
Yeah, he's a tough one. Like he played fine. He finally scored a nice goal. He made a really nice pass to Vilar Alickson in game 1. The things that I liked about Leeroy Mackey were actually on the defensive side and like off puck things. He made a lot of subtle stick lifts. He made some good two-way plays. He was pounding the puck, and I just love that he wants to be there, as opposed to kind of shying away from plays. He always wants to be in it. Do you want to see a little bit more offensive pop? Absolutely. He's 19 goals in the AHL. You're kind of hoping that he's going to step up and do a little more, but he was fine. Like for me, he showed what I already thought, and that just like Tom Willander, I do think he needs to be in Abbotsford and get a little bit more time. I don't think he's going to be walking in to this Vancouver team and playing top 6 minutes by any means. Like there's still some work that needs to be done. The short off season clearly played its role where he didn't show up. He didn't look different from last year. Let's just say that. So overall it was fine. Do we want more? Absolutely, but it is what it is. He scored a nice goal yesterday. So
Vilar Alickson comes into camp and prospect tournaments every year and just reminds us that he rules. Physically engaged again, probably the best player on that top line on Saturday.
Yeah.
Physically engaged, the sweet hands on the goal. He's an interesting one because statistically his profile isn't the most tantalizing on paper, right? D+1 season. I think he had 33 points in 67 games. Last year he was still just a bit below the point per game mark in the OHL. And you typically look at a profile like that and go, most players with that track record of production don't really become impactful NHL players. The odds are usually heavily stacked against you. But just stylistically, when I look at how unique and rare of a player type he is, 6'6", playing like that, he has a lot of the attributes that I would look for in a late bloomer that could beat those odds. What did you make of him this tournament, and what are your expectations for what the next year or two could look for him development wise?
Yeah, it was a good weekend for me. I've been banging on this kid's drum since he was drafted, and pretty much defending his numbers this entire time. Obviously his numbers haven't popped, right? Like he hasn't even been a point per game at the the OHL level, which isn't great. But as you mentioned, his skill set is just so different, and we see it all the time where players they adjust to the pro level a lot better than the OHL level, and that could be something that we see with him. For him, he's got all the tools. Now it's just a matter of refining them and turning them into an everyday package, because consistency has always been an issue with him. You can even see it in this weekend sometimes. Yes, he comes out and has these amazing plays, but you don't see it all game. And so I think just getting under Manny Malhotra, Manny Malhotra, I think it's going to be able to. I think he's going to be a pro player, right? Like I just think his skill set is going to translate to the pro game a lot more, especially under a systems-heavy game like Manny Malhotra and the Vancouver Canucks system. You can't teach 6'6" who can skate like he's 5'10", right? And when he pulls out that size, again, there's inconsistencies in his game, but I just think there's enough of a toolkit to put something that's intriguing enough to at least warrant some sort of whether that's a bottom 6. I've always thought Toropchenko for the St. Louis Blues. I've always thought that was kind of my the base that I went off of, right? And Alexei Protas, who's bigger, but I don't think he's going to score as much as Protas would. So I've always thought Toropchenko with a little bit more of an edge is kind of Alickson's go-to right there.
I was just about to ask you if we were looking at Protus 2.0.
I just don't know if the offensive pedigree is there, but
Yeah.
who knows? He does have some slick hands and tight. Like he does all of a sudden pull off these amazing moves. So who knows? It could happen.
Dave, I love Ulrichson's size, as you would assume, but I was telling Harm, and not that Harmon didn't know, but I was freaking out about it when we were talking about this showcase on Friday. I said, don't forget Ulrichson's hands, and then he obviously scores that goal where he really showed off the hands. Last one for me, Dave. As we get ready for training camp this year, obviously no young stars. This was, I'm glad you got to go to this, obviously, but with training camp this week, what prospect are you looking at? And not necessarily under the impression of like, okay, can they make the team? There's a lot of conversation about those guys. Who are you going to be watching for just to see how they measure up heading into this year? It could be Ulrichson. Is it Braden Coots? Like, who in this list of guys that we're not talking about, oh, they're battling for the last spot on defense? Out of that conversation, out of the Aatu Räty, Linus Karlsson conversation, who are you looking at heading into this camp?
Well, my answer, I'm actually going to switch my answer because it is Ulrichson. I'm very interested to see how he stacks up. We saw he was the best player at the showcase last year, and then he goes into preseason, drops the gloves. Everyone's talking Vilmar Ulrichson. Like, I would love to see if he can double down on that and not push for a spot, but push for a spot in Abbotsford and not just, a rent, because we know that, there is the option where he can go back from Kalamazoo. Like, I am curious if he's a lock in Abbotsford or if he's just going to, be that kind of up and down kind of player that, bottom six. I think for me, he's going to be my most intriguing. But, just because I've already talked about him, I'm going to say I want to see how, to be honest, this is actually a bad answer because he's not going to be pushing for any spots, but I'm really curious to see what Gabe Sherratt does. I thought of all players, he's a very random name to mention right now, but I just thought Gabe Sherratt, out of all the players, at a showcase like this, you don't expect people to just, win people over, but every single time Gabe Sherratt was on the ice, I noticed him. And at a tournament like this, it's just something you want to see. He's not the biggest guy, but he's a bit of a hound dog. And I have a bit of a soft spot and, for those buzzsaws that just don't stop. And for me, he was kind of a guy that stood out. And so I just want to see, he's only 18 years old, so I'm assuming he's not, but I want to see if he integrates at all with that big club, which I'm going to probably say probably not. I don't want to put these lofty expectations on him, but he was a player that did stand out to me, and I'm just curious to see how he does at this camp. So
2 more players I wanted to ask you about. First of all, I know this is a guy that you've beaten the drum about for a long time, Riley Patterson. Looked good on Sunday, filling up for that top line spot. What did you see from him there? And then to follow up on that, sticking to the centers, I know he didn't play here, but looking ahead to training camp and how thin the Canucks are at center, do you look at Ty Mueller as a dark horse name to watch? Not necessarily to break camp and make the team, but just as far as like, can he really make an impression and bring himself into the conversation of being an early season recall kind of guy if there's an injury? Because Mueller's intelligent two-way skill set has impressed me at times watching him in Abbotsford.
Yeah, Riley Patterson, I thought he looked good. I love that he really seized the moment yesterday when he was propped up to that top line. I love that he's back playing center. I know that, I talked to him yesterday, and he's pretty adamant that he can play all three forward positions, but he says that just because he wants to look good. But it'd be great for him to play center. He's a right shot player. I'm really excited for him to go to Niagara because I think he's really going to get a chance to play center at a full-time basis. So he looked good. There's still some physical elements that he's going to have to get past, a little bit of skating stuff. So, all expected stuff, but I think he was definitely one of the better players, in my opinion, from the weekend. So, I think, all things considered, I think it was a good year. And I just wanted to see how he was because this could be his last year in junior. And I just want to see how he stacked up after last year, where I thought he was pretty good. So overall, I was happy with Riley Patterson. Had a good chat with his father as well. So it was nice to see him seize the moment as a top line player. In terms of Ty Mueller, I mean, I think you have to assume, right? I mean, he showed last year he's a bit of a Swiss Army knife, and Canucks don't really have a lot of those Swiss Army knives. I know they just lost one in Pia Suter, and I've always thought of Ty Mueller as a bit of a Pius Suter 2.0. You know, maybe sure, I don't really see him as anything more than maybe a third line center at best. But at the same time, he is that versatile player that can kind of come in. He can kill penalties. He was Abbotsford's best penalty killer last year, which, I mean, at this point in Vancouver, if you can even slightly kill a penalty, you know, you're instantly getting propped up among the top of the list, right? So, and you know, he's good at faceoffs. He's amazing in all three zones of the ice. I just think, you know, you can't not have him in the conversation as a dark horse to maybe not make the team out of camp, but you know, maybe sniff a few call-ups here and there throughout the year.
I love it. I love it, Dave. Yeah, that's a really good point about Mueller too, because we've been talking a lot about the top six. Canucks don't really have like a bottom six center either, right? Like they've got Teddy Blueger who's going to play fourth line, but man, I don't know. I was having this thought today that, you know, we haven't talked enough about the bottom six, so jobs could be up for grabs there as well. Dave, thanks so much for doing this. People can read about Canucks prospects all season long on CanucksArmy.com, courtesy of your weekly column, Blackfish. Dave, thanks for doing this. I wasn't sure if he was frozen.
It looks like Dave's frozen.
Okay. It's okay. That was it anyway. You can take him off screen. I wasn't sure if he was frozen, if he was really not finding my Ty Mueller talk amusing, which didn't seem like him. But yeah, our thanks again to Dave for joining us. Harm, any takeaways? Anything you want to dive into after that conversation?
I think I know we didn't see him at the prospect tournament, but I am really intrigued to see Mueller because this team has so many question marks at the center ice position, and especially if you end up in a situation where Hedl gets hurt or Ratu isn't quite ready to seize the opportunity for whatever reason, and he's in and out of the lineup, you're going to need somebody to step up and who can play the center ice position. And I like that Dave brought up the Pius Suter comparison there. I've sort of looked at Mueller as, if he pans out, could he be a poor man's Pius Suter? Now, Suter was a big-time goal scorer as well at the NHL level, like putting up 15 goals every year in the big leagues and then popping off for 25 last year. I don't think Mueller has anywhere near that kind of offensive potential. He's not going to be a 15, 20 goal guy. Even going back to lower levels, he's never been a star point producer, and his shot really doesn't stand out, but he has enough skill to where you look at him and it's easy to maybe not pay as much attention to him because he is a little bit undersized at 5'11", and most teams don't really look at sub 6 foot players as kind of defensive specialists, but he's just so smart. And again, watching him for Abbotsford in that Calder Cup playoff run, you gain such an appreciation for D-zone faceoffs, high leverage situations, Manny Malhotra sending him over the boards, PK, defensive situations, but also he's quick enough and has enough skill to still make plays, transporting pucks up the ice. And considering it was his first pro year, he still produced at a relatively decent level. He's one of the players that I'm really intrigued to keep an eye on once training camp begins in Penticton later this week.
Which I'm so excited for. I did an article at Canucks Army today just kind of outlining the week ahead. We've obviously got a lot of content coming. We're going to be having some training camp vlogs going up on the Canucks Army YouTube channel, which obviously you'll be a part of just naturally hanging out with us, Harm. But we're going to have Canucks Convo this week. We're going to have a lot of content going up at CA. And your plans at The Athletic. Do you want to talk about anything that you guys are planning on doing?
Drance and I will do our usual like notebooks, observations. We're banging
How
stuff
good
out every
does
day.
Linus Karlsson look, courtesy of
You
Thomas
know
Grant
it.
and Harmon Dial? That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah, it's always honestly like I always tell the staff at CA, like, this is our Super Bowl. I love training camp. Like, training camp is legitimately my favorite time of year. And I say that, like, got to cover that 23-24 playoff run. Training camp clears. I like training camp more than I like playoff hockey. You can clip that. I don't care.
You know what it is?
I love
What's
training
special
camp
about
so
training
much.
camp is everybody cares about the 13th or 14th forward roster battle, whereas 5 games into the season, no one cares. And it's understandable. It's just all that hype and that excitement to see hockey back again. That I mean, just think about this past weekend, how many sickos, while the weather was still decent, at least on Saturday, we're carving out time to hop on Canucks.com and watch a live stream without play-by-play commentary.
Watch an aerial cam with rock, classic rock music playing in the background, just center ice. That's all you get. You can only get to see center ice. And they sat through it. They watched.
Yeah, and it's just like, that's how excited this market gets for training camp and for the season to start. And it's fun when little things that maybe don't mean a ton in the grand scheme of things matter in the moment because people care.
Okay, we got a question from Karn. I could have saved this for anyone else, but I'll get to it now. Okay. If you know the answer, feel free to share. If you don't, do some investigative journalism for Karn, regular listener of the show. He said, Harm, can you ask Drance if he did voice work for EA? Because I swear it's him during some of those interviews for Be a Pro. Do you know the answer to this?
I have no idea. I will be driving up on Wednesday with him and we'll ask him.
Absolutely.
But I would be
Jacob, write it
surprised.
down. Write it down.
Yeah,
We have to
I will.
revisit on Thursday. Thursday's episode, we have to revisit it.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. The game's obviously made here. We know James Cebulski's been doing play-by-play. Ray's been on the game with doing color. Back in the day, Don Taylor. It was Jim Houston and Don Taylor doing the broadcast. I think Rob Fay was like the PA announcer in the game for like 15. He still is. So he's been doing it for like almost 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, would it shock me if Drance did it and just like didn't say anything and then, oh yeah, Drance is interviewing people and Be a Pro? No, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
They need reporter 1 voice work. Tom throws in the resume. Come on, of course. That's a great one. All right. Let's get to anyone else. But before anyone else, I want to tell everybody about the Daily Face-Off Draft Kit, DFO Fantasy Tools. Your one-stop shop for everything you need to build a perfect fantasy hockey team. We're talking player projections, updated line combos, power play units, sleeper picks, bust warnings, and team previews. Basically all the tools to make you look like a genius and your friends look like they drafted blindfold. Whether you're a seasoned vet or a fantasy rookie, this kit has everything you need to dominate your league. So before you make your first pick or panic in round 5, head over to dailyfaceoff.com/draft-kit and get your hands on the fantasy draft kit. Fantasy hockey domination starts at dailyfaceoff.com. Go now. Your bragging rights depend on it. Now it's time for anyone else, which is brought to you by our friends at the Vancouver Canadians. Their season came to a close, but we want to thank them for their support all summer long. Take a look at next year's season ticket options. It's a great time at the ballpark. Make sure you don't miss out. For more information, visit canadiansbaseball.com. All right. I wanted to talk about this goalie trade. I didn't really understand it from Columbus's perspective. Like, and I know you know, I'm supposed to talk goalies, but I want to get your take on it too, because like the ship has sailed on Elvis Merzlikins. It was you know, he had a decent run with the Jackets, but like even dating back to that weird time with the Canucks when he let in like 5 goals, but got the 6th save that he needed and was like, oh, I let the monster out or whatever he said. It's like, dude, the ship has totally sailed on you, right? Like that it felt like the ship has sailed on Elvis Merzlikins. I think he's going to be on waivers. I'm just going to come out and say that right now. They trade for Kolosov. Well, how am I blanking on his name?
Fedotov.
Thank you. Regardless, big, lanky, not very good. Talked about him as being a guy that would hit waivers when I was doing the Shilovs exercise of like what other goalies will be on waivers. I thought Fedotov was going to be one of the goalies that was on waivers. He is presumably going to get a good chance to play for the Blue Jackets. So I don't really get what they're doing, but I'm going to assume that Elvis Merzlikins is hitting the waiver wire.
I wouldn't be so quick to necessarily assume that. I think
you're going to delay
be comfortable.
Greaves?
No, but do you think they're going to roll a tandem with Greaves and Fedotov when Greaves has 21 career NHL games?
Yes.
And you really think so?
Dude, those 21 career NHL games, and let's focus on
he's been stellar. I'm a believer in Greaves. I think he could win the number 1 job this year. He had a 938 in 11 games that he played in.
Like, also think about how Columbus must be feeling that they delayed calling him up. Like, let's not forget what happened with Jet Greaves this season. They delayed calling him up. They did it with like 2 weeks left in the season. I believe only after Merzlikins left for a personal reason. I can't remember what it was. I think he had a kid. Don't quote me on that. Regardless, doesn't matter. Congrats to the Merzlikins family if there was a kid. But anyways, what I'm getting at is that the record that the Jackets put up in that time, they would have made the playoffs if they called him up 2 weeks sooner. Of course, those conversations are going on in Columbus. So I would say out of camp, unless Greaves somehow doesn't do anything.
Well, I'm assuming Greaves makes the team, but it's more. It wouldn't surprise me if they're looking at Fedotov as their number 3.
Okay. Jacob,
Because,
write it down.
I mean, Merzlikins isn't very good, but
Yeah.
Fedotov might be worse. Like,
I think he
Fedotov
is
isn't
worse.
an upgrade.
Yeah, I think he is worse, but they traded for him. I don't think you trade for you don't give him an asset, even if it's a 6th-round pick for a 3rd-string goalie. You don't do that, especially one that costs as much as Fedotov. Look at that contract. There is actually no. I'm gonna say this. There is no world where they got the okay from ownership to trade for that contract if they were like, "Hey, this guy's gonna be our 3rd guy." Ownership would be
But
like, "Are you
also,
nuts?
isn't that
Trade for
contract
this guy or sign someone?"
that contract might be why you're confident that no one's going to pick him up off waivers.
Yeah, but there's
And you give up a 6th-round pick.
Yeah, but there's guys that fall into that category, Harm, that don't cost $3.275 million.
Yeah, but okay. I it wouldn't surprise me if Columbus put him on waivers before the season starts that he clears. Okay. Because of that contract and because he wasn't very good.
Well, both guys are going to clear. I'm just saying I think Fedotov's going to. They traded for Fedotov, and I think they're a little not happy with Merzlikins.
Well, I also think in situations like that, thinking from a manager standpoint, first of all, Merzlikins is still a career 902, right? Mm-hmm. As poor as he's been recently, he is still better than Fedotov. He's on a bigger contract, and let's not keep in mind if let's say you were for whatever reason to waive Merzlikins at the start of the year, and you're going with Greaves and Fedotov, there's a decent chance that at least on the Fedotov end, he might falter, or maybe Greaves isn't quite ready to be a number one. Even if Merzlikins is placed on waivers, you're probably going to need to bank on him to play NHL games for you at some point this season. If you put Merzlikins on waivers at the start of the season, and we know what kind of personality he is and how hot-headed he can be, as a manager, I would be worried about sending that message of pissing him off, and as soon as you waive him right out of the gate for a guy in Fedotov who hasn't proven anything at the NHL level, that you might just capitulate that entire relationship. Like Merzlikins is a guy that whether you're confident in him or not, he's probably going to play NHL games for you at some point. And I see no reason to upset the apple cart and waive him when in Fedotov, I don't think he's that good. And I think he's fine as a number 3 and you can send him down. And I don't think he'll likely get claimed. And even if he does, so what? He's a number 3 that you paid a 6th-round pick for.
Jacob, write it down. Write it down in my predictions. Write it
down.
Sure.
This just seems like such a random prediction. Like who's the 3rd-string goalie for the Columbus Blue Jackets? But sure, you want me to write it down? I will write it down. I just wanted to say, Karin in the chat mentioned how a good portion of Fedotov's contract's already been paid, and yeah, I pulled it up. So his base salary is only $775,000. The other $2.5 million was signing bonus, which would have already been paid out by the Flyers. So
all right.
Columbus,
I take it all back.
Columbus scooped him up, and they only actually owe him $775,000 this year. So
what a wild contract. Here's $2.5 million in signing bonuses. It was like they folded under no pressure. Yeah. There was not a bidding war for Ivan Fedotov. I don't think there was a bidding war.
Well, you know what? They went through such a hassle to get him from Russia. Do you remember 2 years ago or whatever it was, how much of a headache it was to try and get him from the KHL? And so I imagine that when it went into it. But yeah, the moment they signed that extension, I was like, that likely isn't going to age well.
Yeah, and it hasn't. But hey, at least it's tradable. It's tradable. So okay, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I yelled, write it down like 3 times.
So what is your exact prediction? That Merzlikins is on waivers before the start of the season?
Yeah, but now it's Fedotov. It's going to be Fedotov. That's the 3rd guy. I didn't know about the contract. But the contract, that's how you sell it to ownership. My big hang up and my big question was what ownership group is approving $3.275 million goalie? One that doesn't want to spend a lot of money and is going to say, oh, that helps us. That's a bigger cap hit, but we only have to pay him that much. Yeah, absolutely. You can trade for that guy. That's how. So I'm not allowed to walk it back because once I yell, write it down 3 times, it has to be written down. But this might be a quasi prediction that is incorrect. Really, I want to talk about Jet Greaves, though. Jet Greaves is so good. And I want to talk about that because the Columbus situation, I already got the Jet Greaves is so good conversation. But really, I want to talk about our old friend Rick Tocchet because his goalies in Philly, not so good. Not saying they were great with Fedotov, but like that's one area that I feel like we haven't discussed a lot is what situation Tocchet's kind of in when it comes to goaltending, because he had really good goaltenders in Vancouver, but he's not going to have that, you wouldn't think, in Philly.
Yeah, I mean, he's got Kolosov, Samuel Ersson, and then there's a third guy.
They signed Dan Vladar.
They
signed Dan Vladar.
Dan Vladar. Yeah, that gives me very little confidence that they're going to get any semblance of good goaltending. And I mean, the Flyers are just going to be bad again. They could be competitive. They could be hard to play against. They could be fine defensively. But even just looking at their lineup outside of Konechny and Michkov, they just don't have enough offensive drivers. I mean, maybe you get a Zegras bounce back and that helps the cause, but that team just has too many holes and doesn't have enough star talent.
I forgot about Zegras. That's going to be an interesting one to follow. I had another thing for anyone else, and I can't remember what it is. I should really start writing these things down. Do you have anything?
Sorry, anyone else? Sorry, I was
I guess
talking to the interns. I'm in the studio with them, so I'm not paying attention to the chat. I might have missed some anyone else's.
No, you're good.
One point I was going to mention, I'm interested to see how the Kaprizov situation and on all the drama around his future and rejecting that contract offer, whether that could derail Minnesota's start to the season. And I say that because coming out of last year, I was looking at the Minnesota Wild and going, they made the playoffs even though Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek, their two best players, missed half the season with injury. Plus, they're getting Zeev Buhm. They've got other young guys coming up to the system, Yurov, Ugrin, who could make an impact right away. I looked at the Wild and was pretty confident that this is likely going to be a playoff team. But the Kaprizov drama, and we know in Vancouver how much locker room dysfunction and drama can disrupt a team's off and on ice chemistry and their ability to live up to expectations. In fact, keep in mind that when Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin talked about the disappointment of last year and missing the playoffs, the number one thing in their opening statement that they harped on was the Miller-Pettersson situation and how they felt that was the main reason that things fell apart this season. So with all that in mind, what does that do to Minnesota's locker room? Does there come a point where if Kaprizov doesn't seem willing to want to explore an extension in Minnesota, that the Wild would consider trading him and asking for a no trade list, or asking for a trade list from him of suitors he'd be willing to go to and resign with, because they can't really afford a situation where they lose him for nothing. So that is interesting, and that I wonder whether it could jeopardize their how certain I feel about them as a playoff team. And that, of course, would be beneficial to the Canucks because that would leave another wild card spot up in the air potentially.
I remember what it was. Pete DeBoer. Did you see this? Pete DeBoer finally speaks out. Pete DeBoer, he who had some things to say about Jake Ottinger at the end of the Western Conference Final. Again, defending his decision to pull Ottinger in a move that you and I both decided at the time, and said at the time, not decided, but declared at the time, was far, far too early. I think it was 3-1, and he pulled Ottinger, and then after the game said, well he's lost 6 of 7 games.
I didn't mind pulling him. The comments were cross the line, though.
Yes.
The comments were inexcusable.
Yeah, so he was fired. Glenn Gulutzan is the head coach of the Dallas Stars now. What's DeBoer doing this season? Do we know? Like, does he have anything going on?
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure he's just a free agent coach.
Okay, well, regardless, he spoke today, and basically he tried to set the record straight with what happened. He said, "Listen, we were all to blame for coming up short again, and it starts with me. It was on me. It was on all the coaches. It was on all the players. It was on the organization as a whole. We all created the disappointment. We were all to blame, not just one guy." When all the questions at the post-game press conference were about Jake, I should have redirected the topic to reflect that this wasn't just about him. This was about all of us. We, and I stress the word we, did not get the job done. We were on a run in which we'd lost 6 of our past 7 games against Edmonton in the third round dating back to 2024. In one of my answers, I said he'd lost 6 of 7 of them, but it wasn't just him. It was all of us. That's not on just one guy. I should have made that clear. Yeah, you think? Like, I mean, at the time, that's what we were saying. Is like, holy cow, man! Like, what did Jake Ottinger ever do to you? I don't know. I don't have much to say on this other than DeBoer's track record hasn't been great with goalies either. So I don't know. I don't have much else to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, as a head coach, he's had so much success coaching teams that can get far into the playoffs, but he hasn't always had the longest shelf life. And we know that's typically the case for NHL coaches anyway, but for somebody who's had as much regular season success and is as highly regarded as DeBoer is, his shelf life in previous teams has not been very long relative to how much team success he's actually had.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. We've got his head coaching record here open. So he's coached 18 NHL seasons. How many times do you think he's made it to the conference finals in his 18 years?
4.
6.
Higher. 8 times. He's made it to the conference final. All 3 of his years in Dallas, 2 of his 3 years in Vegas, 2 of his 5 years in San Jose, and then 1 of his years in New Jersey. Did he make it to the conference finals? The only time he never made the playoffs with a team was his first stint in Florida, where he was there for 3 years. But you know, he can't stay in a with a team for more than 4 seasons, it seems. But he brings his team to the conference finals really everywhere he goes. Pretty crazy coaching record when you look at it.
Did he ever win the cup?
No. So he lost the cup final with the Devils in 2012, and then he lost again with the Sharks in 2016, and then he hasn't made it back since then. So no cup rings, but 2 appearances and 6 conference final losses.
All right. This is from Colin Whitehead. Speaking of coaching, he said, I think Foote and his assistants will be a good coaching staff this year. I think we will be the 2nd seed in our division this season. Nice take from Colin Whitehead in the chat. Speaking of the chat, people were asking me for, also it was Colin as well, who were asking me for my opinion on the prospect goalies we saw in Seattle. Alexei Medvedev, man. I loved what I saw from Alexei Medvedev. And we were talking about this off air before the game. Even the goals he let in, Dave tweeted them all out. It was like, oh, the 3rd or 4th shot of a sequence beat him, but he stopped the first 2 or 3. So I don't know. Hard to complain about that. He looked really good. I really, really liked his movement. I don't want to keep harping on the Medvedev stuff because I've already talked about it. But yeah, I really like Medvedev and Koskembo as well. Thing that's been brought to my attention recently is that his game will translate better to the pro game than it did in college. So we'll see what that actually ends up meaning. But yeah, good showing from both guys.
Yeah, and the Canucks have some quality coming in terms of young, up-and-coming goaltenders. Those 2 guys, but also Ty Young. We've spent a lot of time talking about it, and I'm really intrigued to see what he can do in Abbotsford and Tolopilo as well. He's not young anymore. He's in his mid-20s, but he's got an intriguing sort of profile, and you're not looking at him as a 32-year-old AHL vet that has no upside left. He's still an interesting guy to keep an eye on as well.
All right. Anything from either of you?
Don't think so.
All right, then let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day, brought to you by, you guessed it, Bet365. Monday Night Football tonight. Which one do we like? Chargers, Raiders, Bucks, Texans? Actually, I'm going to give you a simple one. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, money line against the Houston Texans. They are the underdog tonight. I'm feeling good about Baker and the Bucks. Give me that. Tampa money line plus 125 odds. Keeping it nice and simple today. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get it on the game. Use the code NATION at Bet365. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. All right.
Hold on, Quads. Yeah, I think you just saw Big Hog Hockey, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Is he
Do you need a bonus?
Yeah.
No, they're off tonight. I think he starts tomorrow.
Okay, well, he'll be tomorrow's bet then, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. Harm, your thoughts? Obviously, Big J's guy. They called up Trey Savage, who was with the Canadians to start this summer. That's the crazy thing. Dude was with the Vancouver.
He finally did it.
They finally did it. Harm was clamoring for it. Every time you were at the gym watching Brendan Little blow another hold, you were just saying, call up Trey Savage.
Quads, I need to correct you. He started the season in single A Dunedin.
Oh,
he went
that's right.
single A Dunedin.
Yep.
Advanced A, high A Vancouver, double A New Hampshire, triple A Buffalo, Major League Baseball. You very rarely see players do that, like to go from A ball to the majors, but to actually stop at each spot along the way. Sometimes you'll see it like they'll go A, double A, skip triple A, and then go to the majors. He actually stopped at every step from A ball up, and he's been like a stud at every level too.
Yeah, and you got to give props. Harmon was obviously the first to call it.
Yeah, of course. And also, if he gets lit up in his first MLB appearance, I've learned this because I'm a baseball fanatic. Don't freak out because he himself has said that he first appearance at a new level feels nervous. I think first appearance in AAA he got lit up too. So
You're right, Harm. How did you know that?
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. I know my stuff a little bit this year.
Harm knows ball. And Savage is pitching tonight. Not tomorrow. Going on the bump tonight. All right. Well, that's not going to be our bet, but go Trey Savage. We support all the ex-Vancouver Canadians on this show. All right. We will wrap it up there for my ball-knowing co-host, Harmon Dial, and our technical producer, Jacob Lazar, who thought the game was tomorrow. My name is Dave Gujarelli. My name is Dave Gujarelli. Thanks so much for listening to Canucks Conversation.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.